A shutdown at this time would disrupt a wide range of services, from air travel to law enforcement, and the days leading up to the Christmas holiday.
Dankeschön für alles.
Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
Hi, everyone. Who was fist pumping after getting shot.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Bangladesh wants Sheikh Hasina back. Not as Prime Minister, of course, they want her extradited. They finally made an official request. Now the ball is in India's court. Will India send her back, knowing fully well that she could get the death penalty in Dhaka? Or will India reject the request and risk more hostility from them? We'll discuss that tonight. In Russia, a 9/11 style attack, drones crash into residential buildings. Why is Kiev raising the stakes? We decode their strategy. In Germany, an attack in a Christmas market has fueled politics. What does it mean weeks before their big election? In Iran, their supreme leader says they do not need proxies to fight wars. Ayatollah Khamenei urges the people of Syria to fight the new regime in Damascus. Meanwhile, reports say Bashar al-Assad's wife has filed for divorce. We'll bring you the full story. Can Donald Trump retake the Panama Canal? Why is popcorn trending in India? What's the GST confusion? Is Elon Musk the new Soros? And a look at the booming wedding industry in India. It's already worth $130 billion. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. A Saudi delegation meets Syria's new leader. They join a growing list of visitors to Damascus since the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. In 2012, Saudi Arabia had severed ties with Assad's government, but last year Riyadh restored relations between the two nations and was instrumental in Syria's return to the Arab League. China refuses to cooperate in a probe linked to the severed Baltic Sea cables. Sweden says Beijing has denied a request for an investigation. In November, sections of 2 telecom cables were cut in Sweden's territorial waters. Suspicions have been directed at a Chinese bulk carrier. US President Joe Biden commutes the death sentences of 37 out of 40 federal inmates. This comes just weeks ahead of Donald Trump's return to the White House. During his first term, Donald Trump oversaw a sweeping number of lethal injections. Trump has also spoken about using the death penalty for migrants who kill Americans. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jahangir to visit the US tomorrow. This will be a 6-day visit. It will be the first high-level visit from India to the US since Trump won the election. The minister will also chair a conference of the Consul Generals of India in the US. Mozambique's highest court confirms the ruling party election victory. The opposition had challenged the polls held in October. Since then, the southern African country has been rocked by unrest. The ruling Frelimo party has been in power in Mozambique for half a century. And filmmaker Sharma Benegal passes away at the age of 90. He was a pioneer of parallel cinema in India. Benegal directed acclaimed films like Ankur, Nishant and Mandi. His films are celebrated for their realism and social commentary. The speculation can finally end. Bangladesh has officially asked India to return Sheikh Hasina, to extradite the ousted Prime Minister. We could all see this coming. It was only a question of how and when. And we got the answers earlier today. Bangladesh's interim foreign minister announced the move. He said that Dhaka has sent a diplomatic note to New Delhi, basically an official message. And what does it say? That Sheikh Hasina should be sent back to be tried. Remember, Sheikh Hasina faces more than 150 cases in Bangladesh. Some of them are at the ICT, the International Crimes Tribunal. These cases cover genocide and crimes against humanity, and if convicted, Hasina could get the death penalty. So the stakes could not be higher. Tonight, we're looking at two sides of this move. The first is the technical side of things, and the second is the political side. India and Bangladesh do have an extradition treaty, a treaty that was signed in 2013 and amended in 2016. The treaty does permit the exchange of under trials, but it also has grounds to deny it. For example, if the accusations are not made in good faith, you can say no. India can reject the request. And there is a case to be made here. All these charges are linked to what happened in July and August. That's when Hasina cracked down on student protesters. You could say it was wrong. You could say that there was excessive force. But genocide, that sounds a bit extra. Which brings us to the political side of things. India has confirmed receiving the extradition request from Dhaka. Beyond that, there is no comment. But chances are New Delhi won't be happy with the way things are going. India's Foreign Secretary visited Dhaka this month. He did discuss the issue of Sheikh Hasina. He told them that India would work with the government of the day in Dhaka and that Hasina's stay in New Delhi would not affect ties. That is the reassurance that India gave. Clearly, New Delhi was keen to avoid the situation, but Dhaka went ahead anyway. They wanted to pick a fight with India. Now, the question is, how will India respond? If you send Hasina back, you're sealing her fate. She faces charges of genocide, of crimes against humanity, charges of murder and of embezzlement. Today, Bangladeshi officials opened another probe against her over corruption at a Russia-backed nuclear plant. And we're talking big money here. Officials say some $5 billion was swindled. So if Sheikh Hasina returns to Dhaka, she won't see daylight again. She'll be locked away for good. And what if India does not extradite her? Well, then ties with Bangladesh will worsen. They're already bad, especially the situation at the border. Look at what happened on Saturday. Indian officials caught a Pakistani-trained terrorist, a man linked to the Lashkar-e-Toiba. His name is Javed Munshi. Now, this man is an expert in explosives and weapons. Munshi was caught near the Bangladesh border. He was caught on the Indian side of the border, trying to cross over, basically trying to escape to Bangladesh, where he hoped to find a safe haven. Last Friday, Indian officials also busted a sleeper cell. It was run by the ABT, the Ansarullah Bangla team. This is an offshoot of a Bangladeshi terror group. So things are heating up at the India-Bangladesh border, and this extradition row could make it worse. The diplomatic note is just the beginning. Dhaka can pile up more pressure. They've already, in fact, sought help from the Interpol. They're seeking a red notice for Sheikh Hasina. It's basically a request to countries around the world, if you spot such and such person, please arrest them. Of course, India does not need to spot Hasina. She is staying as a guest of the Indian government. So ultimately, it will be a political call, one that could decide the future of the Delhi-Dhaka relationship. Dhaka has clearly chosen its path. It is not interested in normalizing relations with India, hence this extradition request. It is now India's turn to choose its path. So far, New Delhi has been patient and understanding, but this face-off could change the approach. Let's see if India turns up the heat. Those pictures have rattled Russia. An attack that was eerily similar to 9/11. It happened over the weekend in the southwestern city of Kazan. Drones crashed into apartment buildings. Luckily, no one was hurt. But who carried out such an audacious strike? Ukraine has not formally claimed responsibility or credit, depends on how you see it, but they did not really have to. They've been at it for a while now. This year, Kiev took the war inside Russia. It stepped up military operations, targeted Russian cities. Then a few days ago, they planted a bomb in Moscow. The Ukrainians assassinated a top general in the Russian army, in the Russian capital. And now apartment buildings are being hit by flying bombs. Like I said, this happened in Kazan. It is one of the wealthiest cities in Russia. It is located around 800 kilometers east of Moscow and over 1,000 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. So Kazan is far from the conflict zone. Perhaps that's why it was targeted, because Ukraine wants Russians everywhere to feel that they are at war. And sure enough, Vladimir Putin has responded. He has vowed to retaliate.
Whoever and however much they try to destroy in Russia, they will face many times more destruction themselves and will regret what they are trying to do in our country.
Putin's statement said it all. The strike was too big to ignore. Ukraine launched at least 7 drones. 6 of them targeted residential buildings. The 7th one hit an industrial facility. Kazan shut down its airport temporarily. Large events were cancelled, schools had to be evacuated, and sirens were heard across the city. Listen to these eyewitness accounts.
We smelled the smoke and went down quickly from the 21st floor on foot. There was no electricity, the elevators were not working.
We woke up at 8:40 because of the strong explosion. There was 1 or 2 explosions. We woke up and started reading the news. We saw first that the Azure Skies residential complex was hit. Then we read that there was a hit on Clara Zetkin Street.
Kazan is the Russian city where the BRICS summit was hosted in October this year, and now Ukrainian drones have hit this city. If the goal was to create panic, then Ukraine was successful. But if they were trying to weaken Russian forces or just distract them, the plan has failed. Because Russia has now doubled down. It is striking Ukraine with greater force. It claims to have captured more than 190 Ukrainian settlements this year, and now Russian troops are making steady progress in the east. Over the weekend, Ukraine lost 2 villages, one in Kharkiv and another in Donetsk. Again, the goal is simple: take up as much territory as possible. Russia wants to lock in these territorial gains before the 20th of January 2025. That's the day when Donald Trump will take oath as US president. Moscow has made a simple calculation. Trump's arrival would weaken Ukraine's defenses. So capturing more land now would give Russia an edge, an upper hand during a negotiation in the weeks ahead. You see, Trump's position on the war is well known. He is not a fan of Biden's approach. He wants to cut military aid to Ukraine. He wants the war to end. He wants to push both sides towards a negotiated settlement. And where does that leave Ukraine? Between a rock and a hard place. So Zelensky has adopted a new strategy, a two-pronged strategy. This is what he's doing. Part one, to launch attacks deep inside Russia and push Putin on the back foot. And part two, to win over Trump and bring him into Ukraine's corner. How will Zelensky do that? He has resorted to flattery. Consider this. Zelensky met Donald Trump earlier this month. They were both in Paris for the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. French President Emmanuel Macron hosted both leaders. That's where Zelensky tried to butter up Trump. He said, Putin fears you. And then a few days later, Zelensky was in Brussels, where he tried to flatter Trump again. Listen to this.
I think that President Trump is a strong man, and I want very much to have him on our side. For me, it's very important.
Trump is a strong man, he says. Well, Zelensky is not the first leader to try this. Others have done it before with mixed results. Because Trump is unpredictable, there is no guarantee that Zelensky's tactics will work. And he doesn't seem to have a plan B. So as things stand, the Ukrainian president is playing a very risky game, provoking Putin without securing his defenses further. It is a dangerous gamble, one that could backfire on the people of Ukraine.
Der wird abgeführt, oh Gott, oh Gott.
It's become a familiar pattern now. Something deadly happens, the nation comes together in solidarity, they mourn together for a few days, but soon afterwards the politics begins. This time it's in Germany. You would have seen what happened there on Friday. A driver rammed his car into a Christmas market. It happened in the city of Magdeburg. You can see how the attack unfolded from CCTV footage. The car plowed into the massive crowd there. 5 people were killed in the attack. One of them was a 9-year-old boy. More than 200 people are still in hospital. Out of them, 41 are said to be critical. 7 Indians were among those wounded. And the driver? Well, he was arrested from the crime scene itself. Take a look. This has happened before in Germany. In 2016, in Berlin, a truck rammed into a Christmas market in Berlin. 12 people were killed and 56 were injured. That attack was claimed by the Islamic State. The motive was terrorism. This time, there is confusion about the motive and the politics. Just look at the attacker's identity. His name is Talib al-Abdel Mohsen, a 50-year-old doctor from Saudi Arabia. He came to Germany in 2006 and he was declared a refugee in 2016. At first glance, it did appear to be an Islamist attack. So you can imagine what happened next. A flood of xenophobia and Islamophobia. The far right blamed the attack on Germany's immigration policy. Another radicalized Islamist migrant on a rampage. That's how it was seen. So they organized a march on Saturday. A second march is expected to begin shortly. It is being led by the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. It's a far-right political party in the country. So things are pretty tense in Magdeburg. People are still coming to terms with what happened on Friday, but grief has taken a back seat. It's all about politics now. To make matters worse, the attacker's motives are not clear. We know that he was radicalized, but by who or what is unknown. For starters, this man describes himself as an atheist. His social media is full of anti-Islam posts. He talks openly about abandoning his faith. He expressed sympathy for the AfD, the political party we just mentioned. And he accused Germany of trying to Islamize Europe. The interior minister of the country has confirmed this. She said that the attacker was clearly Islamophobic.
At this stage, the only thing we can say with certainty is that the perpetrator was clearly Islamophobic. We can already confirm that. Everything else is subject to further investigations. We'll have to wait and see.
An Islamophobic Arab, as weird as it sounds, that is the attacker. He's been on Saudi Arabia's radar for a while. Reports say that the kingdom alerted Germany about him. They flagged his extreme views and threats, not once, not twice, but 4 times. They alerted Germany 4 times. Riyadh also requested to extradite him. Yet, Berlin did not track him down. In the month of May this year, the attacker posted something very disturbing. He said German terrorism would be brought to justice. He also said that he would die to achieve that. Now, authorities did spot this post, but they did not take further action. Apparently, the post was not violent or dangerous enough. That's how they saw it. So now questions need to be asked of Germany's security apparatus. How were so many red flags missed? How was another Christmas market targeted? And why were Saudi Arabia's warnings ignored? These are all legitimate questions, but it's also important to not answer them yourselves. You must wait for the authorities. Unfortunately, though, that's not happening. In Hungary, Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has sensed an opportunity. He is blaming the attack on migration.
I would definitely like to say that these phenomena have only existed in Europe since the migration crisis. So there is no doubt that there is a connection between the changed world in Western Europe, the migration flowing there, especially illegal migration, and the terrorist attacks.
Germany's AfD is doing the same. Their march will only add to the tensions. But then again, it's election season there. Germany's government is on its way out. Fresh polls are slated for February. So everyone is looking to score political points, to milk this tragedy for gains. It is no secret that Europe has a migration problem. They welcomed millions of refugees in the last decade. Not everyone has assimilated well. But migration does not explain the security lapses in Magdeburg. Nor does it explain the intel lapses leading up to it. That is entirely on Germany's government. Now let's turn our attention to West Asia, where the tensions are escalating once again. After Gaza and Lebanon, Israel has opened a new front. It is targeting yet another proxy of Iran, the Houthis in Yemen. There's been a fresh wave of attacks and a new war of words. The latest volley has come from Iran, which is Israel's mortal enemy. Iran's supreme leader has spoken, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He says Iran does not need proxies to hit back.
The Islamic Republic does not have a representative force. Yemen fights because it has faith. Hezbollah fights because the power of faith brings it to the field. Hamas and Jihad fight because their belief forces them to do so. They do not represent us. If we want to act one day, we don't need a proxy force.
We do not need a proxy force, he says. They do not represent us. Quite a statement from Iran's top leader. He's calling these groups resistance forces. Remember, all of them have suffered setbacks in recent months. And this reflects poorly on the regime in Tehran. They could not protect their friends. It's been a tough year for them. Iran calls these groups the axis of resistance. This axis has been hammered. Just look at this map. In Gaza, the Hamas has been dismantled. In Lebanon, the Hezbollah has been defeated. And this month in Syria, the Assad regime collapsed. Now, Israel is training its guns on the Houthis in Yemen.
As we acted forcefully against the terror arms of Iran's evil axis, so we will act against the Houthis. Only in this case, we are not acting alone. Therefore, we will act forcefully with determination and sophistication. I tell you, even if it takes time, the result will be the same result as against the other terror arms.
It began last week. Israel conducted a series of strikes in Yemen. They hit ports and energy infrastructure. Israel said these were Houthi military targets. Of course, retaliatory strikes followed. The Houthis launched missiles towards Israel. At least one of them fell in Tel Aviv. A dozen people were injured. This wasn't their first attack, though. Since the war in Gaza began, the Houthis, along with other Iranian proxies in the region, have targeted Israel. They have launched some 400 missiles and drones in 1 year. Israel managed to shoot down most of them. But the Houthis remain undeterred. They say they will keep attacking Israel until it stops the war in Gaza. And where do the Houthis get their weapons from? Who is arming them? Iran, mostly. Since 2009, Tehran has supported the Houthis in multiple ways, with weapon transfers, with training, and with intelligence support. And with this backing from Iran, the Houthis have captured most of Yemen, including its capital, Sana'a. It's all under Houthi control. They are a key ally for Iran now. They extend Tehran's influence as far as the Red Sea. And now they're trying to build more pressure, both on Israel and its Western backers. The Houthis say that they've thwarted a major attack this weekend.
The armed forces have successfully thwarted an American-British attack on our country, during which the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier and several of its destroyers were targeted in conjunction with the start of the aggressive attack on our country last night.
And this is what he was talking about. Over the weekend, the US launched an operation. American jets conducted what they call precision air strikes in Sana'a, the Yemeni capital. The Americans say that they neutralized 2 Houthi facilities, a command and control center and a missile storage center. But the Houthis contest these claims. It's hard to verify either version, but one thing is quite clear. The conflict in West Asia is still spiraling. Iran's axis of resistance may be weakened, but it's not been crushed. It still has the potential to foment conflict. Look at what Khamenei said about Syria. He's made an appeal to the young people in Syria, asking them to rise against the HTS, the group that is now in charge in Damascus.
I predict that the phenomenon of a noble, strong group rising in Syria will happen. The young Syrian has nothing to lose. His university is insecure. His school is insecure. His home is insecure. His street is insecure. His life is insecure. What should he do? They should stand with strong will against those who designed and those who implemented the insecurity. With God's will, he will overcome them.
He said the US and Israel planned to topple Assad, and without naming Turkey, he also said that a neighbor had a role to play. And now he's urging the people of Syria to fight back. These comments from Iran's supreme leader are significant, an indication that as Iran battles external and internal challenges, as the regime faces increasing pressure, it may be willing to stake it all to survive. For the region, that only means more chaos. Vantage continues after a short break.
But I will order federal workers to get back to the office in person or be terminated from the job immediately. And we will create the new Department of Government Efficiency headed by Elon Musk. And no, he's not taking the presidency. I like having smart people. You know, they're on a new kick. Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 all the different hoaxes. And the new one is, President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on? Right? Don't we want that? He's done a great job. Our citizens, we're going to protect our citizens. But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe, you know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country. But the fake news knows that. No, he's a great guy, and we want to have him. Everybody, so many people are in this audience that have helped.
Donald Trump on Wednesday pressured his fellow Republicans in Congress to reject a stopgap bill that would prevent a government shutdown. The president-elect's intervention disrupts a bipartisan effort to keep the government funded past the end of the week. Trump instead urged Congress to pass legislation that would raise the debt ceiling, a politically difficult task. He also said lawmakers should strip out elements backed by Democrats whose support would be necessary for passage. He warned that Republicans who vote for the current package could have trouble getting reelected, writing, quote, "Any Republican that would be so stupid as to do this should and will be primaried." Trump ally billionaire Elon Musk chimed in as well, pressuring Congress to reject the bill and saying that those who back it should be voted out of office. Musk spent more than $250 million to help Trump get elected and has been tasked by Trump to prune the federal budget. Right now, the bill would fund government agencies at current levels and provide $100 billion for disaster relief and $10 billion in farm aid. It also includes a wide range of unrelated provisions, such as a pay raise for lawmakers and a crackdown on hidden...
They say when it rains, it pours. Just ask Bashar al-Assad, the former president of Syria. 2 weeks ago, his regime collapsed and now it looks like his marriage may be over. Reports say his wife has filed for divorce. Her name is Asma al-Assad. Apparently, she's not happy with her new life. The Assads are in Moscow right now. The family had been there for a while. Bashar al-Assad joined them earlier this month, on December 8th, when he fled Syria. Now, all of them are in Russia, and reports say that Asma is not happy with this new life. She wants to go to the UK. She has reportedly applied to a Russian court seeking special permission to leave Moscow. The Kremlin has denied any such reports, though. They say that she is not seeking a divorce. But what prompted these rumors? Who is Asma al-Assad? Why was she called Syria's Lady Macbeth? And can she return to the UK if she wants to? Asma was born in 1975 in West London. Her parents had fled Syria in search for better opportunities. Her father was a cardiologist. Her mother was a diplomat. They remained attached to their Syrian roots. But Asma identified as British. In school, she called herself Emma. She lived quite a privileged life. Went to private schools, got a degree at King's College in London, and went on to become a banker at JP Morgan. Her mother had other plans, though. She wanted to promote a match between Asma and Bashar al-Assad. At that time, Assad was just an eye doctor, not the heir apparent of Damascus. That role came to him unexpectedly when his brother died in 1994. Bashar al-Assad had to return home. Then a few years later, his father died. It was the year 2000. Bashar al-Assad was all set to take over Syria. He was still unmarried, though, and Asma was still working at JP Morgan. In the summer of that year, she went on a mystery holiday with him, and when she returned, they were engaged. Asma quit her job, she moved to Damascus, and in December 2000, the year 2000, the two got married. It was a low-key affair, no official photos, no mega events. Asma was told that her only job was to produce heirs, and she did. The couple had 3 children. But Asma was talented and ambitious. She wanted to do more. She was a polished spokesperson. She mingled with Western leaders. She traveled the country incognito to understand the needs of her people. Many called her Syria's Princess Diana. She set up multiple charities. She inaugurated galleries. She opened cultural parks. It was termed as Syria's cultural renaissance. And leading it was the First Lady herself. She had support and cheerleaders in the West. A Vogue cover called Asma al-Assad, A Rose in the Desert. But this rose hid her thorns. Then in the year 2011, the Arab Spring swept across West Asia. Regimes were toppled. There were calls for freedom. In Syria too, protests broke out against Assad's rule. At first, Asma was silent. Many wondered who would she support, the people or the palace. Soon they got their answer. As protests turned into uprisings, Asma al-Assad stood by her husband Bashar. Then came the civil war. She became more than just a silent bystander. Her charities shifted their focus. They would assist only those who supported the regime. Behind closed doors, she wielded enormous power. She became a trusted advisor to Assad. She launched a PR offensive. She helped funnel millions of dollars. At the height of the war, some emails were leaked. They revealed her spending habits. She ordered Louboutin shoes, designer furniture and custom jewelry, all while millions of Syrians were dying. The Western media went from loving her to loathing her. She used to be called the Desert Rose, but now she was the Marie Antoinette of Damascus. But Asma did not retreat. While her husband bombed cities, she took a different role. She was the softer face of the regime, a calculated counterpoint to Bashar's brutality. In 2018, news of Asma's breast cancer diagnosis broke. State media crafted a narrative of courage, the first lady battling cancer while her country battled enemies. Away from the cameras, though, her influence continued to grow. She took control of Syria's economy. By 2020, rumors swirled within the regime. Was Asma eyeing a leadership role of her own? There was speculation that she was already making key decisions. 4 years later, the Assad regime has fallen, and now the family is in Moscow. And Asma seems to want out, or so reports say. She wants to return to the UK, the country where she was born. Chances are it won't be a grand affair. UK officials say she won't be welcome anyway. She may also be charged for the war crimes committed in Syria. So Asma's story remains a paradox. She began as a symbol of hope and progress, a potential bridge between the West and the Arab world. But she's also linked to Syria's darkest chapters, complicit in the destruction of an entire nation. Was Asma al-Assad merely a product of circumstance, or was she an active participant? This story is still being written. Have you ever given a gift, changed your mind, and demanded it back? Maybe not, but the US has. We're talking about the Panama Canal. Donald Trump wants it back. This is an 82-kilometer artificial waterway. It connects the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean. Years ago, the canal's control switched hands with a treaty. The US handed it to Central American ally Panama. This happened in 1999. American ships still use the canal, but Trump is not happy. He says American ships are being overcharged. He wants Panama to reduce the fee or return the canal. What does Panama have to say about it? Can Donald Trump actually retake the Panama Canal? Here is a report.
Donald J. Trump!
US President-elect Donald Trump is basking in his return to power. Over the weekend, he held the first major rally since winning the November election. He talked about an array of hot-button topics, including the Panama Canal. This 82-kilometer canal cuts across the Central American nation of Panama. It's a major shipping route and the main link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Up to 14,000 ships cross the canal every year, including container ships that carry everything from cars to natural gas and even military vessels. Now Trump wants to retake control of the canal.
We're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. A secure, he just said take it back. That's a good idea.
Trump has accused Panama of charging exorbitant prices to US shipping vessels, or in his words, that America is being ripped off. He has demanded that Panama reduce fees on the canal or return it to US control, which the US quote-unquote foolishly ceded to its Central American ally.
When they gave it to Panama, can you believe that? We would never have done it if we thought what's happening now can happen, and we would never, and we will never, ever let it fall into the wrong hands.
The Panama Canal was built in the early 1900s. The United States maintained control over it until 1977, after which they signed a treaty to gradually cede the canal zone back to Panama. After a period of joint control in 1999, Panama finally took the sole control of the canal. But now, in a rare example, a US leader is saying that he could push them to hand over the territory to the United States. Though he didn't explain how or when he would do so, his remarks have received a sharp rebuke from Panama's president.
I want to express that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent areas belong to Panama and will continue to belong to Panama. The sovereignty and independence of our country are not negotiable.
The sovereignty may not be up for negotiation, but what about the rates that Trump wants lowered? Panama is not keen to oblige in this area either.
Rates are not a whim. They are established publicly in an open hearing, considering market conditions, international competition, operating costs, and the needs of maintenance and modernization of the interoceanic waterway.
If shipping rates are not lowered, Trump says that he will demand that the Panama Canal is returned.
If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question.
But can Trump actually retake the Panama? According to experts, there's no provision in the treaty that would allow for the US to legally retake control of the canal. So is Trump making an empty threat, or will the Panama change hands yet again? Well, we'll find out soon enough.
Do you remember when India adopted the GST, the goods and services tax? The government's pitch was pretty simple: one nation, one tax. Cut to 2024, the GST is raising concerns, especially for its latest decision. One popcorn, many taxes. Let me explain. The GST Council met over the weekend in Jaisalmer. This is the apex body on indirect taxes. They had a meeting. This is the body that decides the levies on different goods and services. One such good was popcorn. There will now be three different rates for popcorn. 5% for the non-branded kind, 12% for the packaged and branded kind, and 18% for the caramel one. Users on social media were quick to criticize. Some of them posted pictures of mixed flavor popcorn like this one, Himalayan salt plus caramel. What rate will this mixed packet attract? You can see why this is confusing and unnecessary, not just to people on social media, but even experts. Listen to what the government's former chief economic advisor has said, and I'm quoting. This is a national tragedy, violating the spirit of the good and simple tax the GST was meant to be. The folly is compounded because instead of at least moving in the direction of simplicity, we are veering to greater complexity. That pretty much sums it up. The GST was supposed to make our taxes simple, but in some areas it has become more complicated. Let me tell you about a recent court case, a case that has troubled the Indian judiciary for 15 years. The case of the coconut oil. Like popcorn, there are different rates here. Edible oil has a 5% tax, but hair oil has 18% tax. Now, in some parts of India, coconut oil is used as both for cooking and hair care. The tax authorities wanted an 18% levy on it, but the companies went to court, and last week the Supreme Court, the top court of India, settled this debate. They said if it is labelled edible, tax will be 5%. It doesn't matter how small the bottle is, where it is sold, or for what purpose it is sold. If it says edible, only 5% tax is applicable. Now, the confusion here is evident. Other hair oil makers must pay 18% tax, but coconut oil makers do not have to. Their tax is just 5%. All they have to do is slap on the edible tag. The idea of the GST was to avoid such issues, to make taxes more streamlined. But some producers say GST has complicated things. For example, roti and parathas. Both are made from the same staple ingredient, which is wheat. But frozen roti has 5% GST and frozen paratha has 18% GST. Such problems were highlighted by the World Bank a few years ago. You see, the GST is supposed to be a unified tax, meaning one rate for the whole country. But India's GST has 4 slabs: 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%. And these multiple rates can complicate the system. Again, listen to what the World Bank said, and I'm quoting: the multiple rate structure and the enforcement framework using onerous reporting requirements for businesses places a huge compliance burden on businesses especially, and is having a negative impact on the economy. This is according to the World Bank. So why did India go for multiple rates then? Because we are a federal country. Different states have different interests and priorities. So one single rate was not acceptable. Despite all of this, GST collection has been impressive. It crossed 20 lakh crore rupees in the last financial year, which was a new record for indirect taxes. So clearly the idea is working. What we need is more simplification, perhaps more inputs from smaller businesses, because the GST was supposed to be the good and simple tax. Right now, it's neither. Elon Musk is known for transforming industries, whether that's electric cars or space exploration. But Musk is now venturing beyond that. He's stepping into the world of politics, becoming a global disruptor in his own fashion. In the US, he backed Donald Trump. In Argentina, he backed Javier Milei. Both leaders ended up winning elections. And now Musk is turning towards new countries, discussing donations with Nigel Farage of the UK and supporting Germany's AfD party on X. Across the globe, Elon Musk is hedging his bets on elections and hoping to gain something out of it. Does that make him the new George Soros? Is Elon Musk the modern-day kingmaker, or is it just a calculated strategy to secure his legacy? Our next report tells you.
Elon Musk, he's a tech entrepreneur, he owns a social media platform, he's the world's richest man. Musk has always pushed the boundaries of what's possible. But in recent years, he has stepped into a new role, one not limited to boardrooms and rocket launches. Instead, he's positioning himself as a global political force, a kingmaker shaping the future of world leaders.
Send American astronauts into space. Come here. Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
It all started with the United States elections this year. Elon Musk bet on Donald Trump. He donated millions to his campaign. He showed up at his rallies and he used X to garner support for Trump. In the end, Donald Trump won the elections and Musk ended up with a very powerful friend. And he now has the US President-elect's ears. But Elon Musk isn't stopping at the White House. His political influence is stretching across the pond now to the United Kingdom. Elon Musk has been vocal in his criticism of the ruling Labour Party. He even called the UK a police state. Last week, he met Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK. It's a right-wing party looking to challenge UK's political system. Their meeting wasn't just symbolic, it was the beginning of something bigger. Musk reportedly discussed a multi-million-dollar donation that could make a seismic impact on British politics. And it's not just the UK, Germany is gearing up for elections in February, and Elon Musk has a favourite there too. It's the AfD, the Alternative for Germany party. The AfD is a far-right party gaining ground in Germany's politics, and Musk wants to capitalize on that. On Friday, he wrote on X that only the AfD can save Germany. So the endorsement is quite clear. In Argentina, Musk was seen championing Javier Milei, who's been a libertarian firebrand. Milei and Musk's policies align. They both want economic freedom and deregulation. But for Musk, it isn't just politics. What's at stake is very clear. Argentina's vast lithium reserves are crucial for Tesla's battery supply. And Milei's pro-mining stance is exactly what Musk needs. Does that make Elon Musk the new George Soros of the right? The parallels are undeniable. Both men have immense wealth. Both use it to influence global politics. George Soros has funded liberal causes around the world, like liberal American groups or pro-EU campaigns. Musk, however, is charting a different course, aligning himself with populist right-wing leaders. But for Musk, politics isn't just about ideology, it's also about business. His connections with world leaders seem to be driven by mutual interests. He also wants to shape policy on a global level. Critics argue that Musk's increasing political involvement could have dangerous consequences and shift the global balance towards authoritarianism, where business tycoons like Musk hold sway over elected officials. But as Musk's political footprint expands, the question is, what kind of global influence does he want? Is he truly a kingmaker, or is he simply looking out for himself? Whatever the case may be, Elon Musk is no longer just a businessman, he's a political force to be reckoned with.
Who calls it winter season and not the wedding season? We ask because in India, year after year, winter launches a riot of colours, a clash of studded giant skirts and a battle of buffets, quite literally. It is like the wedding Hunger Games. It is the survival of the fittest. For the happy couples who embark on the unhappy journey of planning endless guest lists, visiting countless stores and splurging on feasts. It is a high-pressure time for the attendees too. Everyone from the drunkles to the howling children, they shuttle between cities, plan a series of outfits and show up for the multi-day extravaganzas to celebrate the couple and criticize the wedding food. Of course, what's not openly discussed is the money, but it is no secret that in India there is no business like the wedding business. Indian weddings are a $130 billion industry, the second biggest in the world, second only to China, where the wedding industry is worth about $170 billion. Although India is expected to surpass this by next year. It should not come as a surprise. Two reasons why. One, India is home to the highest number of weddings in the world, 10 million every year, 10 million weddings every year. If you don't believe us, refresh your Instagram feed. Every time you do that, another wedding reel pops up. And two, Indian weddings are elaborate affairs. People often spend beyond their means. The average Indian spends twice as much on weddings as on education, which is not something to be proud of, but that's how it is. The average spend is $14,000 per wedding or 12 lakh Indian rupees, which is 3 times the average annual income of an Indian household and about 5 times the per capita GDP. And this is just the average number. Indian weddings can be over the top, and that's an understatement. Inspired by Bollywood and funded by rising disposable incomes, they're getting bigger and fatter. This year, between mid-November and December, about 5 million weddings were held in India. They generated $70 billion in business. That is up from $55 billion last year. And out of these 5 million weddings, about 50,000 cost more than 1 crore rupees each. 1 crore is more than $110,000, a lot of money to spend on one wedding. So where is all of this money going? For starters, in photo shoots. There are pre-wedding, post-wedding, and now even honeymoon photo shoots. So Bali is probably witnessing the new Indian tripling, husband, wife, and the photographer. But jokes aside, about 10% of the budget is spent on the location, mostly thanks to destination weddings, which have grown significantly from 18% in 2022 to 26% this year. And in case you're not in on the trend, let's bring you up to speed. Oman and Portugal are the new hot destinations if you're looking to go abroad. And Goa, Pushkar, Udaipur and Kerala are your best options if you're following the Wed in India campaign. At least that's what surveys say. So location takes up a big chunk of the budget, then comes catering. Another 10% of the budget is spent on catering, contributing to the annual $14 billion in food wastage. Another 6% of the budget is devoted on music and sound, so that geriatric guests cannot hear their own thoughts, and the young guests can showcase unpracticed Sangeet moves. Then there are some other beneficiaries, like the retail and jewelry market, auto market, even social media planners. They will curate your wedding feed and churn out wedding reels within hours because month-late wedding movies are so last season. Planning an Indian wedding is not for the weak-hearted. Yet despite all your efforts, your guests may still complain. But remember, the Indian economy will thank you because Indian weddings are big business and they're only getting bigger. Vantage continues after a short break.
But I will order federal workers to get back to the office in person or be terminated from the job immediately. And we will create the new Department of Government Efficiency headed by Elon Musk. And no, he's not taking the presidency. I like having smart people. You know, they're on a new kick. Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 all the different hoaxes. And the new one is, President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on? Right? Don't we want that? He's done a great job. Our citizens, we're going to protect our citizens. But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe, you know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country. But the fake news knows that. No, he's a great guy and we want to have him. Everybody, so many people are in this audience that have helped.
Donald Trump on Wednesday pressured his fellow Republicans in Congress to reject a stopgap bill that would prevent a government shutdown. The president-elect's intervention disrupts a bipartisan effort to keep the government funded past the end of the week. Trump instead urged Congress to pass legislation that would raise the debt ceiling, a politically difficult task. He also said lawmakers